Okay, positive energy all the time. Shout out to everybody. Much respect to my mods, the beautiful Mrs. Moore is over here making it happen. The Queen April is over here. Oh, and also, you all, the sister April is almost to her goal. So if you can, go to her GoFundMe and add what you can to try to help her out. It'll be much appreciated. Here is the link. Mods post this every now and then so she can raise a few more dollars. Y'all hit that GoFundMe. Help her raise a few more dollars and get her situation back in order. Rep your city, rep your city, rep your city. I am representing Chicago, Illinois. Yeah, help the sister out. She don't have that much further to go to reach her goal and get her car back on the road and get back to work. So everybody, I'm representing Chicago, Illinois. Everybody on Facebook. Everybody on Kick, Twitch, and YouTube. We got the ATL in the building. North Miami Beach is in the building. Greensboro is here. Buffalo, New York is here. Philadelphia is here. Salute to all my mods. I appreciate you all. It's going to be a busy year, so I'm going to need you. Here we go. Everybody come on in, come on in. I want to talk about this situation. Atlanta's in the house. I'm not quite understanding Pan-Africans not supporting reparations as hard as they should. And I'm not understanding blacks that are not from the U.S. I don't understand them not supporting reparations for foundational Black Americans. I'm not understanding that. And we're going to talk about that. I don't really understand that right there. I'm not sure what that's about. And I want to talk about it. The Pan-African movement it's not moving at all. It's basically non-existent. So there's people identifying as Pan-Africans, but they're not bringing no movement to the table. It's like stagnant Pan-Africans. Like I'm a Pan-African, and that's just that. No movement. No movement. It's just I'm a Pan-African. As a result, Pan-Africanism has gone backwards. I'm talking about this because I had a brethren, a Ross I was just talking to, and he been watching me, and he said, so, Ramesses, man, you know, push Pan-Africanism? I said, Bruh, push it to who? He said, boy, you make a good point. Because I say, push it where? So I had to remind him, hey, back when we were younger, we had an audience to push a Pan-African concept. That doesn't exist. So I asked him, I said, well, why aren't the Pan-African people creating any type of venues or anywhere for it to be pushed? He didn't have an answer. He didn't have an answer. See, the Pan-African movement had too many flaws. Okay, it had too many flaws. I was there. And it had too many flaws. One of the biggest mistakes of the Pan-African movement is it didn't reach for the religious groups. See, y'all, it got to the point. This is the history. There never was a Pan-African movement in the Black communities. Okay? That really never existed. There was a period in the 70s from around, people a little bit older than me, so I'm going to say like 72 on, that really took off like 78, 79, 80, 81, 82. Right? This is some real black history in the United States. This is facts. So what happened is you have our parents, my group, our parents, all the brethren around my age, a little older, a little younger, all our parents, they come into this society, right? They coming up doing the whole Malcolm, Martin Luther King thing. So their things is just, they're dealing with social rights and just economical, moving up economical, trying to get a home, raise kids, send them to school, get a car, that nice job, and the equal rights to be able to do that. So then they have us. We're all born in the 50s, from some of the early 50s on through to like 62, 63, like that. That group right there, that's us. So now our parents mostly come from the South. So they don't have any type of, the only culture they have is Southern hospitality culture. That's all Black people used to have, was a Southern culture. There was no Northern culture because the Blacks that was in the North, when the Great Migration kind of started happening, those Blacks were also from the South. So it's like Blacks that came up early and then the Blacks came after. So like my grandfather, my father's father came up here from Alabama, but then he went back. And he was always telling my daddy and my uncles and my aunties, Chicago, Chicago, Chicago. So when my daddy got grown and came back from the military, he hooked up with my mother, and him and my Uncle Sidney and my Uncle Oscar and my Uncle Stanley, them four, because it was my daddy, the youngest of 13, they came to Chicago because their daddy always told them, go to Chicago. Chicago's not as racist as down here. There's plenty of jobs they'll hire you. I'm painting this picture so you all know Black history. So they have us. They have our zine and our generation. Now, when we come up, we began to expand the concept. We become the concept group. Our parents were just basic. They wasn't really dealing with concepts too much. You might have had a couple of people that might have a couple of parents that was in the Nation of Islam. They would be the only ones. But in those days, you kept that to yourself and you were still just a regular Black American when you went outside. You didn't go outside a Muslim. You understand? You only was a Muslim if you're selling Final Call or something to raise money. Other than that, you just another brother or sister. This how the vibe was going. But then they kids, we come up, we wearing our different beliefs on our shoulders. You know what I'm saying? But, and this is what a lot of Blacks today don't understand. The difference between my generation come up with everybody in the different religious groups and the Black consciousness. This we don't understand. There wasn't enough of us in any group. No group had enough people. This is facts. None of us had enough people. If you go and you look at, Azim will tell you, if you go back and you look at like 1978, 79, 80, 81, we didn't have enough people. The Hebrew Israelites didn't have hardly nobody. Brothers that was Muslims we didn't have a lot of people. Our age group, we didn't have a lot of people. The Black Panthers that was left over didn't have a lot of people. Pan-Africans, the Yorubas didn't have a lot of people. Rastas, the Kemetic, the Pan-African, the revolutionaries, nobody had a lot of people. Now, the one thing we had in common was our women kind of did the same things. So the unity was based around the queens because all the queens wanted to wrap their hair, wanted to wear more skirts, wanted to dress more royal, not no pants and stuff. So the queens was locked in because they trying to learn how to cook better, eat better. The Nation of Islam, you got to eat better. Hebrew Israelite, you got to eat better. Rasta, you got to eat better. Everybody's trying to eat a little bit better. And the queens wrapping their head, so they kind of link in. How you wrap your head, sister? Oh, get material over here, get material over there. So when we would have an event, it wasn't enough for no group to have an event yet. We couldn't have no Rasta event or no Kemetic event or no in the community. We couldn't have no Nation of Islam event for our younger generation. We talking about the elders not doing that. We the young ones. So there really wasn't no Pan-African event. Pan-Africans came to the other events where we all came. So it might have appeared to be Pan-African, but it wasn't. It was a cultural, we called it a cultural community. So when they got on Sinai to talk about the conscious community, that's from the cultural community. Because we had a bunch of different types of culture. But we all hung together because we were outcasts of the regular Blacks. You see what I'm saying? So a brother that was really headstrong Nation of Islam would be very comfortable around a Hebrew Israelite or a Rasta or a Pan-African because we all headstrong and we all outcasts. So by nature, we was like clicked in. It would be hard for this generation that argue and debate to really understand that. We was like clicked in the United States. There was really not no difference. There was no difference between a brother in the Nation of Islam and a Rasta or a Kemetic brother. Or I swear to God, we was like the same thing. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. We was like the same. We didn't really highlight our differences because we was all different than the basic Negro. So it was the Negroes and it was us. You see, it's hard for y'all to understand that. We like the outcast. Seriously. So there wasn't no energy. Nobody cared what the other one believed or nothing like that. We wasn't into that. All we know is that we're the group that have these belief systems and everybody else is basic. So we was a family. These are absolute facts. Here in Chicago, we had a place called a Wild Hair where reggae played every night. And everybody knows it's a bunch of black Jamaicans there and black Americans there with dreadlocks up. So everybody came. Everybody came to the Wild Hair reggae. Brothers from the Nation of Islam, Hebrew Israelites, everybody came because this is the black spot. It wasn't like this the Rasta spot. This is where the black folks is at. That's outcast from the system. So we would all be there, and reggae was like the background music to us hanging out. So the Pan-Africans was there too. Right? The Africans didn't begin to come until you get to the 80s. The Africans wasn't there. You're talking the 80s, KB. So when I'm talking the early 70s and early 80s, you're talking late 80s, 88 and 89. So ride with me. There's no Africans because Africans wasn't really here yet. They were just really coming. Africans didn't even start coming till 70, and it took them some time to begin to mingle in. So they really didn't start functioning with us till they wasn't there in 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84. They was there more 87, 88, 89, 90, like that. They wasn't there. Yeah, it really wasn't no Africans there. This was all foundational Black Americans and Jamaicans. Jamaicans was the only ones there. Maybe a couple Trinidadians, but it was mostly Jamaicans and foundational Black Americans. And there was no problem with the mingling because the Jamaicans were highly respected because they was the entertainment. You know what I'm saying? So everybody liked whoever go play the music. So the Jamaicans were the entertainment. And then the rest of us. So we held the Jamaicans in high regard because when we have an event, we have them, and then we have, the other brothers with the flutes and the drummers, because we had like cultural groups too that would play. But you have an event, if you have a 2-day event at the park, who gonna play the music? So you need 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bands. So anybody that can play any type of music that's not mainstream music, that's got some type of culture to it, jazz was accepted. but it had to be like an Afrocentric type music. And Jamaicans saved everybody but because they was always ready to play, because in those days, all the cities had local bands. So you had plenty of local reggae bands that was ready to perform at the little local events for those grassroots situations. You don't have to hire no famous band. You go to LA, it's a whole bunch of brothers ready to play. Chicago, wherever it was brothers ready to play. You know what I'm saying? You had a lot of brothers that played music kind of like Sun Ra. That's a good point. So you had a lot of brothers play music kind of like that. Some used to play with them, and they had their own little bands. You know what I mean? And they would play at these like cultural type of events. Right? And so then you had the Pan-Africans would be there. Now, the foundational Black American Pan-Africans, they were never the main Pan-Africans, because the Rastas was the main Pan-Africans. So when you look at the mid 70s on through in the 80s and the 90s, Pan-African was basically Rastas. Period. There was really not no Black American, Pan-African, nothing. So a lot of the brothers and sisters that wore their African clothes and stuff, they wasn't really mentally Pan-African. They was what you probably call Afrocentric. You see what I'm saying? So you would look at them and think that was Pan-Africanism. It wasn't. That was like Afrocentric, representing Africa, roots and culture, like representing what you thought your heritage was. But they wasn't really pushing the concept of no matter where you come from, long as you're a Black man, you're African, and a international Pan-African concept. Only Rasta was pushing that. Rasta was the only ones pushing a global Pan-African concept, because the Jamaicans was from Jamaica, the Trinidadians from Trinidad, they from St. Croix, so they looked at the rest of us as a part of that big melting pot. The pro-Black brothers from the Caribbean, they the ones brought that to the Black Americans and to the Africans. That's a fact. That's an absolute fact. Because the Black Americans, we didn't come out of a Pan-African movement. We came out of a Black Power movement, which is different. We in America, we come out of Malcolm X and the Black Panthers. We come out of Soul Train, the Afro Sheen, and the Afro Pick, which it represented Africa, but we didn't wear it to say we going to Africa. We wore it to say, oh, we got this Black blood. We got African blood. The brothers in the Nation of Islam, at that time, they were standing on Bilal. They saying we Bilalian because Bilal was the one that took Islam to Africa. So they was connected to Africa. A lot of brothers in the Nation of Islam now don't even know the history. The Nation of Islam was connected to Africa under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad based on Bilal. And they used to call themselves Bilalian. They had Bilalian news. Bilal was the one that took the message to Africa. So it was a real Black thing. Mind you, the Minister Farrakhan, when he took over, he from the Virgin Islands. The last time I seen him was at a reggae show. I talked to him at a reggae show. He loved reggae. He from the islands. Hell yeah, he loved reggae. The minister loved reggae. He goes to the reggae concerts and he be having the seat down in the front. I think it might have been Lucky Dubé, or it might have been the other brother. One of the reggae artists from Africa we went to see, and he was there. So there was really not no Pan-Africanism except in reggae. Now, as time going, the little religious groups start growing. So as they begin to grow, they grow too big to be a part of the cultural community. Yeah, it was Luciano. It was Luciano at the Airy Crown. Sure was. It was Luciano. It was Luciano, and I was sitting with my queen, and he walked by, and I told my queen, wait a minute. I went and said, hey, Mr. Farrakhan, you know. It was Luciano. Sure was. Sure was. It was Luciano at the Airy Crown Ballroom, if I'm not mistaken. At the Airy Crown, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been at the auditorium, but I want to say the Airy Crown. Yep. So there really never was no Pan-African movement. Now, during this time, you know, blacks is coming out the South, they weaning themselves off of Christianity. So brothers becoming strong Muslims, Nation of Islam, strong Hebrews, Rastas with a different religious concept. So as brothers start really going that direction, Africa kind of began to not be at the forefront, because as brothers become more stronger into Islam, they're not really talking about Africa. As brothers become more stronger Hebrew Israelites, they ain't really talking about Africa. The only ones now really talking about Africa is the Rastas and maybe some of the Afrocentric brothers and sisters, but they, you know what I'm saying? It was a few of them, and they would do stuff like start schools, like little Afrocentric schools, open up shops to sell like clothes and garbs and African jewelry and stuff like that. But it never really built no strong Pan-African movement. There's never really been that. Because that whole generation, we wasn't really looking at no Pan-Africans. We looking at Malcolm. We looking at Fred Hampton. We looking at UEP Newton. They wasn't really pushing Pan-Africanism. They was pushing black revolutionary, black liberation for us here in this country. We always was about fighting for what we was trying to get here. If somebody mistreating you here, you don't got no lot of time to be thinking about what's going on with somebody somewhere else. It was the Rastas that was making us aware what was going on with other black people. So that's where reggae came in at, because what reggae did was you had different Rastas lived in different areas, and so then reggae became the news. That's the difference between the old reggae and this reggae. This reggae today is horrible. Reggae then was the news. Facts. So if you listen to Steel Pulse, they keep you up on what's going on in England. So you listen to Steel Pulse, you listen to Lynn Quincy Johnson, you know what's going on in England. So Steel Pulse was the one that put me up on the National Front. They had the song, We Gotta Stop the National Front, National Front. All you got to do is hear the words. Now you know what to go research. We don't got the internet. So if we don't hear the word, we don't know what to research. We find out the National Front is like some Nazi type dudes in England that be beating up blacks. So we getting that information from them. We got the Jamaicans in Jamaica, they giving us information coming out of Africa and coming out of the Caribbean. We got groups like Messenger giving us information from up in Canada. This is the only news we got. But we don't have no strong Pan-African movement. But if you would have looked at a lot of us, you would have said we was Pan-Africans because we was Afrocentric. But the only ones that would really be considered Pan-Africans was Rasta, but the type of Pan-African they was only based on repatriation. Moving to Africa, it wasn't about trying to get other blacks to become Pan-Africans. There was never a movement to spread Pan-Africanism. That was just an individual concept. If you think you want to go home, it was basically individual. It wasn't like no group thing. It was like a bunch of brothers that feel like we're going to go back to Africa and then we hang out together. But we really didn't go back to Africa. Now people be like, well, why y'all didn't go back to Africa? Because we got to go out here and deal with the police every day. Now, when I'm 20, 1978, 79, like that, some of the police that work for the Chicago Police Department were from South Africa. Because you had these real racist police chiefs. Y'all just don't know. And they would hire extreme racists on the police department. This is a fact. So our everyday battle, every time we went outside, it was really revolutionary. That is a fact. This is something you young brothers don't know. When you went out in the 70s, in the 80s, LA, Chicago, New York, it's going to be a confrontation with the police. You're going to have to be ready. Wasn't no Africans nowhere. Bro, what is he talking about? Hold on, let me get him out of here. Wasn't no Africans nowhere. What is he talking about Africans? There were no Africans nowhere. There was no Africans involved with foundational Black Americans or Black Americans. In those days, in these neighborhoods, right? In the neighborhoods, right? In those days, K-Biz, like you Chicago. In Chicago, Black people live on the west side and on the south side. Then on the north side was like mostly white. You had Jamaicans that live on the south side. You had Jamaicans live on the north side. And when the Africans came here, they would move up in the areas where the whites was kind of at the less expensive area on the white part of town. The Africans would not live anywhere around us. They would come here and they would live on the north side. As a matter of fact, the mentality was so different between the Black immigrants that would come to the south side and the Black immigrants on the north side that the Jamaicans was beefing between the south side Jamaicans and the north side Jamaican, because the south side Jamaican was just regular Black people like Black Americans, but the north side Jamaicans were, you know, those type of Blacks. The north side Jamaicans and Rastas wasn't really dating black women. You read between the lines. The South Side Jamaican was dating black women. The Africans was always in the other part. They never wanted to live around us. They were always separatists. And the only time the Africans came around us is when we would have a festival and they could come make some money. Other than that, the Africans never messed with black people in the United States at all. Not from the Caribbean or nothing. They would only show up at our festivals to make money. And they would only smile at you when you walk up to their booth and they think you're going to buy something. Other than that, if they sitting at that booth, they just sitting back there mean mugging at the festival. And then you walk up, they try to smile. Hey, brother, my brother, you want to get something? And then when you don't buy something, go right, sit right back down. They only came to leech. Like, oh, you guys into Africa? Oh, let's go get some money. So they seen that black people was kind of open, and they would just come. They still like that today, not all of them, but yeah, that's still the same thing. Still, nothing changed. So yeah, it was no Africans didn't deal with us, never have, and probably never will. Never. They only showed up if some kind of way it could benefit them. And they also brought down the quality of how the booths looked. It was horrible. They just made it look so tacky. They didn't put, they just throw stuff. It was just horrible. They really messed up a lot of the festivals because you get they would come like gangbusters and get a bunch of the booths, right? And make it too top heavy with African junk. You know what I mean? And don't set it up right, don't make it look right. And they just be there just like an African junkyard. You know what I mean? You understand? The Jamaican posse in the 80s. Yeah, I remember the Jamaican posse in the 80s. But the Jamaican posse in the 80s, that was a big thing in New York. That was big in New York. Because New York got a lot of people from the Caribbean and stuff. You know what I'm saying? That didn't go over big in Chicago. Yeah, the Jamaican posse wasn't nothing in Chicago. There was basically no Jamaican posse in no Chicago. Not with GDs, BDs, Black Souls, White Souls. Nah, that's New York. Our vibration, if you tried to come here, my vibration was something like this. You know what I'm saying? You're going to be all Jamaican, no posse, coming down here playing with the Don Dada. You know what I'm saying? You're going to bring that, don't bring that to Chicago. So that never did nothing in Chicago. You can't do that in Chicago because of the gang culture. Yeah, you can't be no Jamaican posse in no doggone Chicago. They tried. I don't want to say nothing negative, so I can't say what happened to them. But I could tell you some of them fled to Jamaica and never came back. I could say that whole trucks with all their sound system got taken. I could tell you one story. We had a place called Union Hall. And we used to go to these parties. I'm out hanging out. I'm hustling. So I really don't get off work till like 1:30, 2 o'clock. I could pass up those couple dollars. So Club Dread closed at like 2. So we got a place called Union Hall. So when it's real late, I'm out hustling. Me and the Queen, I call her, I'm finna pick you up, babe. I go pick her up. Boom. We go to Union Hall. I can get to Union Hall 2:30. If I get there at 2:30, Jamaica's just getting there. That don't close till 5 in the morning, the sun up before they stop. So I remember one time she wasn't with me. I went to Union Hall, Jamaican dance hall thing. So I'm standing there and I see three Black American brothers. When you go to something cultural, there's a certain vibe where everybody come. Well, I'm from the hood, I'm from the streets. So three brothers came and they was not the late night dance hall crowd. I could see these three dudes, but I'm thinking they just heard it's popping. So they just came from outside. Somebody said, hey man, it's ladies over there. They just came. So they came, they stood right there, three of them. But they just looking. Then a few minutes later, like four more came. Then a little bit later, 3 or 4 more came. Then I started noticing they got on red and black. So I'm like, oh, these Blackstones. And they not dancing, they not moving, and they piling up. So I left. I said, I gotta go. I already knew, these Jamaicans did something to the wrong. You know what I'm saying? These dudes and came to Chicago, these dudes, you know what I'm saying? I said, I gotta go. These Jamaicans, they done messed up. And man, by the time I got ready to go, it had to be about 20 Blackstones in there, and they were still coming. The next day I heard what happened, it went bad. A truck got taken, all the equipment got taken, and a dude got taken too. Yeah, where they had did something in one of these black neighborhoods. You cannot go in no gang city and do nothing. You'll never have as much power as a gang that started in the 60s. These is gangs that have been here since the 60s. They got thousands of members. You ain't going to be able to get no thousands of Jamaicans in Chicago like that. You're not going to win. That type of behavior where you did have a couple of bottom them in California and Chicago ruined reggae and hurt the Jamaicans. The Jamaicans got deported. And my brethren got killed over that in L.A. Where the Jamaicans was out there. I don't know. I don't know what they was thinking. Took some stuff from a dude that was a Crip. The people got hurt over that. It's like, what is y'all, crazy? But you know, they from Jamaica, they didn't understand Black American gang culture. It's like, bro, you can't win with that type of membership. Y'all ain't got that type of membership. You would have to be in Jamaica to be able to have a posse big enough to go with the Crips or Bloods or Blackstones or GDs. Are you serious? Let me just look it up. Look, y'all think I'm kidding? Look. While exact current numbers are exclusive due to the clandestine nature of gangs, estimated for the gangster disciples place their Chicago membership in the tens of thousands, potentially ranging from 25,000 to 30,000, though figures vary significantly, with some sources mentioning broad networks across states and even internationally. Now, how you gonna come in from Jamaica and deal with 20, 30, 40, 50,000? Come on, man. It ain't even going to be 20,000 Jamaicans in the city. And they're going to be working Jamaicans. So it's only going to be how many bottom line? Only going to be 25 to maybe at the most 25 of you bottom line. That's it. Against 25,000? You know what I'm saying? Come on, man. That's a whole nother video. But let's get back to what we was talking about. So with this conscious community, cultural community, certain brothers start getting into certain religions and stuff like that. And so the Afro part start dissipating as more brothers start becoming more culturally religious. That people don't understand that was culture too. A Hebrew Israelite, a brother in the nation of Islam, that was a nation of Islam culture. Know that. So they not checking for Africa. Then all you got is the Rasta and reggae, so you really ended up with no Pan-Africanism. Because all the Pan-Africanism was in the reggae music. So Pan-Africanism then and still today is a very weak movement. It's weak. Right now it's on the internet. So when you start getting to the late 90s and stuff, now this stuff started to go into Facebook. So you go into Facebook, you start getting RBG and stuff like that. But when you really look, RBG wasn't pushing Pan-Africanism. I don't know what they was pushing. I think they was pushing like revolutionary concept, but they wasn't never really actively pushing Pan-Africanism. When you go to Sonetta TV, they wasn't pushing Pan-Africanism. They was pushing debates between Hebrew Israelites and Kemetic and stuff like that. When you go to the Kemetic brothers that was representing Africa, they wasn't Pan-African. They wasn't Pan-Africans. Being a lecturer on African history is not Pan-African. That's not Pan-African just because you talk about ancient African history. Pan-Africanism is today, what you're doing in Africa today, economics, military, police, health today. You can't just go and be wearing no red, black, and green and giving no lectures on no old African history and say you know Pan-African. You're not. You got a dude right now claim he a Pan-African. He's not. He a lecturer. He's not a Pan-African. He is not pushing anything modern to do in Africa. Everything is some old history. That's a historian. Dr. Ben was not a Pan-African. He was a Hebrew Israelite, actually. And he was an historian. This is a fact. So they're trying to make Pan-African like anything you say about Africa is Pan-African. No, it's not. No, it's not. Just because you're saying something about Africa, that's not Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism is the constant teaching that you all come from Africa, that want to say you come from Africa. It's not a teaching to force you to say you come from Africa. It's a teaching that if you recognize yourself as an African, then Africa for the Africans. And it's a concept of repatriation. That is Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism is repatriation, reparations, and rehabilitation. That is Pan-Africanism, not history, not Kemetic history. That's not Pan-Africanism. Because you talk about something happening in Kemet. That's not Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism is a teaching of going back to Africa. period. If you're not actually teaching to go back to Africa, that is not Pan-Africanism. There is no Pan-Africanism where you global Pan-Africanism. No, Pan-Africanism is global going to Africa. It's not just living global. That's not Pan-Africanism. How could living in England, living in Chicago be Africanism? How can it be Africanism if you ain't in Africa? Make it make some sense. How is anything Africanism if it ain't in Africa? Make that make some sense. So now knowing that Pan-Africanism is about Africa and me coming up as a Pan-African, once I seen that the Africans did not deal with Pan-Africanism, I left it alone. Because the idea was to get the Africans stimulated into Pan-Africanism, which they not. You cannot have Pan-Africanism without Africa. That's point blank, period. There is no Pan-Africanism without Africa heading it up. That is a fact. You can talk all the history you want. You can put your ankhs on. You can put your red, black. You can do all that. But without Africa pushing Pan-Africanism is no such thing. That's just what it is. That's like trying to have Islam without Mecca. Am I lying, Z? That's like trying to have Islam and you ain't got no Mecca. That's what that's like. You love Islam, but you don't respect Mecca. What? That's what it's like. So Pan-Africanism is weak right now. And true Pan-Africanism supports everybody. That is a fact. True Pan-Africanism supports everybody that connects in some type of way with Africa. True Pan-Africanism. But it's all based off of Africa. Once Africa is not the focus, that's not Pan-Africanism. Africa has to be the focus in Pan-Africanism. And that's why Pan-Africanism is dead in the water, because the Africans aren't Pan-Africans, and you can't expect somebody outside of Africa to push to be a Pan-African without Africa. This is why the Rastas calmed down some on that, because the Rasta was like, Africa not ready. So a lot of Rasta brethren and stuff, they got children, they got queens, they gotta make them money, they gotta eat. So they had to calm down on the Pan-African stuff and deal with day-to-day survival, because they couldn't keep pushing something about Africa that Africa don't see. That's like me talking about coming to your house, but I ain't welcome. I already know you don't want me to come to your house. You don't even know I'm coming to your house, but I'm preaching about the day I come to your house. But if you was a Pan-African, you would be of a higher level and you would definitely support FBA and reparations. If you had any type of global blackness concept, you would support everybody. That's just a fact. If you was a Pan-African, there's no way you would talk against reparations. There's no way you would talk against, if you was a Pan-African, there's no way you would talk against reparations. If because Africans should never speak against Black Americans in reparations, because the concept is if these people get money, you could get money. So at what point you gonna hate on your opportunity to get money? If I'm in Africa, I'm pushing reparations because if Black Americans get reparations, guess how much money that money gonna get spent in Africa? Guess how many African brothers and sisters gonna make money abroad from that money? Do you know how much money Africans will make if Black Americans get reparations in the United States? I'll give you a perfect example. I go to an Ethiopian restaurant on the north side. They building a brand new one on the south side of Chicago, a big one, right in the middle of the community. Some Ethiopians. I helped build that because I support them year in and year out. Why would they not support reparations when they got two restaurants in Chicago? And why would they not support Black people getting that money and come and spending that money in that restaurant? This shows you Black people don't understand economics. How is not every Black person not supporting reparations when that's money you could get? This to show you we don't have no businessman. We don't understand the trickle down theory. Like when they get money, money starts spreading. That's money spread. That's money that's spread. That money's not going to stay with them people. They're going to get that money. That money going to go. So me, if I'm from Ghana or I'm from Trinidad, Jamaica, heck yeah, I want y'all to get reparations. Are you crazy? Are you crazy? That is putting money closer for me to get. I can't get no money that's not out here. This is how the economy works. Money got to be out here to get money. So if the government give these people all this money, that's money everybody could get. It's just common sense. Let's take Africa. You know how slow Africa got to be to not be pushing the United States to give Black Americans reparations with all the Black Americans that's going to go to Africa? If you're the African tourist industry, you know how slow you got to be to not be on the side of Black Americans to push for reparations? With all the Black Americans that probably wanted to take trips to Africa, couldn't afford it, get that money? Gonna come to Africa, they ain't gonna stay 3 days, they're gonna stay 2-3 weeks. 2 weeks. This is what's wrong with Black people around the world. We slow. There is no way me as let's say I'm a Pan-African and I don't even want reparations. Ain't no way I'm not supporting reparations. Ain't no way. Ain't no way I'm not supporting reparations. I have no idea what you talk about, Honcho. You don't listen. This ain't about nobody liking. This is about somebody losing money. So I don't know what you're talking about. And you're bad for my chat. You're bad for my viewers. And I want my viewers to be intelligent. Now, if you're going to come over here and help them raise their intelligence, good. But if you're going to come over here, I can't deal with it. This is high-level conversation. This is not what you on. We're not on that. This is high-level conversations. This is not about nobody liking us. This is about their ability to get something from it. That's my whole point. Why would you not like somebody and don't want nobody to get something that you could benefit from. I know you don't understand that. I get it. This is way up here over your head. I get it. You basically saying what I'm saying. I'm saying they slow for that. I'm saying they slow. They should like us to get money. You're like, yeah, but they don't like us. It's like, okay, let's move on. See what I'm saying? Let's move on. Because that's the point I'm making. This is not about liking us. This is about money. This is about money. This is about national money and international money. That's what this is about. Anybody with some sense is going to support reparations. Anybody, whites too. Any white Americans that have any sense are going to support reparations for foundational Black Americans. I'm talking to people that know about economics. I don't want to talk to no emotional person or somebody that can't focus on the conversation. You can't get no money if ain't nobody got none. So anytime you get in a situation where somebody got some money, you could get some money. Right now, if white Americans got a whole lot of money, it would benefit Black Americans. That's a fact. It would benefit everybody in America. That is a fact. This is over people's head. You can flip it. Right now, if white Americans got millions and millions of dollars, it would benefit everybody in this country because they're not going to keep it. They're going to spend it. And once it go out there, it's just going to be out there money. This is high-level economics. I'm telling you, because you can't get no money if ain't no money out there. So if the government puts some money out there, everybody wins. Everybody. So a true Pan-African is going to definitely support FBA 100% to get reparations. A true Pan-African of high knowledge is not going to be mad about delineation because a true Pan-African is going to recognize that everybody's already delineated except foundational Black Americans. If you're a highly intelligent Pan-African, you will understand that Nigerian is a delineation. Ghanaian is a delineation. Ethiopian is a delineation. So you would not at all be mad about foundational Black America being a delineation. It would be just another delineation like all the others if you were a highly intelligent Pan-African. Because a highly intelligent Pan-African is interested in the benefit of African people worldwide and melanated people. Intelligent Pan-African, right, understands that everybody's not an African, but everybody's melanated. Everybody suffers from racism from being Black or brown. So an intelligent Pan-African is going to want all of the African people and melanated people to win, period. That's just plain. An intelligent person is not going to make don't care about the distinction between a brother and sister identifying African or Native American. An intelligent. I'm not going to talk about unintelligent people. I'm talking about highly intelligent people that call themselves positive Black people, which is what a Pan-African would be considered. A positive Black person would support reparations everywhere. So if you're a Pan-African, they say Jamaicans want reparations, your vow will be given to them. Black Britons want reparations, give it to them. Trinidadians want reparations, give it to them. Foundational Black Americans want reparations, give. This would be the Pan-African concept. No strong Pan-African would ever speak against FBA or reparations. A strong Pan-African like myself, if I go on the internet and I see Black Americans talking crazy about Africans, that would not bother me because I'm a strong Pan-African, and that's just if that's doesn't I wouldn't pay no attention to that. A strong Pan-African is gonna stay focused on whatever their mission is. They're not gonna get caught up. They would never get caught up in the FBA African beef. As a fact, a strong Pan-African would never care nothing about the Twitter beef. Fact, this is facts. They wouldn't speak on it, and it would never act like it never happened. These are absolute facts. A strong Pan-African would be like, well, what you think about FBA Africans beef? They'd be like, oh, man, I don't pay no attention. A strong Pan-African, they have leadership qualities. They wouldn't pay that no attention. All they would pay attention to is what needs to be done and what's going to benefit what needs to be done. They would not pay attention to none of that. These are facts. A strong Pan-African would not confuse reparations with FBA. Reparations is reparations. Foundation of Black Americans is Foundation of Black Americans. They're not the same. Foundation of Black American is a lineage and a description. Reparation is money is due. They would not mix those two together. A strong Pan-African would understand all those things. They would understand how much money the Haitians is paying the French, how much money the West African countries are paying Europe, and they would want those payments to stop, and they would want that money to return to the brothers and sisters that's paying the slave owners because they lost their slaves. This is what a strong Pan-Africanist would be. A strong Pan-African would never be beefing with no FBA. That is a fact. If you see a Pan-African that's got anything to say about reparations or FBA or Tariq, anything like that, that is not a strong Pan-African. That is a weak loser. They do not have leadership skills. Period. They lack leadership skills because they would never feed into the negativity. They would always push the positivity. If you was a strong Pan-African, you would always be up here. You would never come down there. Never. Never. That's a fact. Never. A strong Pan-African would never compare Pan-Africanism to FBA. Never. That's a fact. Don't nobody want this smoke. That is an absolute fact. Because they already know it ain't the same. So they would not even indulge in a low-level conversation like that. They'd be like, man, I'm not talking about nothing stupid. That's some, what? These is facts. A strong Pan-African would all be focused on the oppressors and who owe the debt, not the ones trying to collect. That's a fact. There's no way as a Pan-African, because right now I'm pushing FBA and all that. I'm not really pushing Pan-African, but I'm a long-time Pan-African. There's no way I would, if I was a Pan-African and I wasn't dealing with FBA, there's no way I would speak against FBA. There's no way I would speak against American descendants of slavery. None of that. There ain't no way. If I was a Pan-African, even if I didn't want to identify as FBA, as a strong Pan-African, there was no way you would get me nowhere recorded where I say anything against that. Ain't no way. That would never happen. It would always be, yeah, they right, give them their money. I support them 100%. Even if I don't consider myself them, a strong Pan-African will support them. I support FBA, a strong Pan-African. That is a fact. If you're a Pan-African and you beef with FBA, you're not a strong Pan-African. You're weak. You're a private. You're not a general. You're not a five-star general. You're not none of that. You're not no general. You don't have leadership qualities. if you let them pull you down in the cesspool. That's a fact. You ain't never seen me get in the FBA African beef. Never. All my criticism about Africa is the same criticism I make about blacks in Chicago, blacks in America, blacks in the Caribbean. I treat everybody the same way. Everybody gets criticized for the way they act. But as far as me getting involved with a nonsense beef in front of these Europeans, in front of these people, ain't no way. Ain't no way no black people going to be asking for some money from a white system. Am I going to go against the black ones? That would never happen. That would never happen. You would never have me on record saying anything like that. That would never, ever, ever happen. If I'm an African in Africa right now, you would not be able to pay me to go against black Americans over in America trying to get reparations. It will never, ever, never, ever happen. Never. Anytime you ask me about it, all I got to say is give them their money. What about Jamaicans for reparations? Give them their money. What about the Caribbean people in Europe want their money? Give them their money. This is a strong Pan-African. A strong Pan-African will not dip down in the cesspool. It would never happen. If you see Pan-African argue with FBA, these are not leaders. These are losers. They are not strong enough to represent a Pan-African structure. They don't have the leadership qualities to push Pan-Africanism. How could they be global? How could they push any type of global? And a strong Pan-Africanism, a person that deals with Pan-Africanism, a strong one, is going to put all the pressure on Africa. And the amount that we're going to be able to push Pan-Africanism is going to be based on Africa. It never would be based on Black Americans, Jamaicans, or nobody. It would have to be coming out of Africa. Period. A strong Pan-African applying all the pressure on Africa and not putting no pressure on the diaspora for Pan-Africanism if Africa is not at the forefront. That is a fact. A strong Pan-African, like a Steve Biko was in Africa. So anytime you see a Pan-African trying to push Pan-Africanism everywhere other than Africa, that is not a strong Pan-African leader. That is a weak Pan-African that wants to pressure everybody except the Africans, but constantly using the word African, Pan-African, but no pressure on Africa. So how is you a Pan-African without Africa? How you going to go to Africa if Africa don't want you to come? Let's make that make some type of sense. How you going to pan to Africa? How you going to go to Africa if you're not trying to get Africa ready for you to come? All pressure from Pan-Africanism must be applied to Africa. Not to me in Chicago. Don't talk to me in Chicago about pushing no Pan-African on me when Africa ain't on it. Because me as a Pan-African, I'm on snooze. I'm on snooze. I got the snooze on. Wake me up when Africa wake up. I'm not dealing with Pan-African. I'm not dealing with Pan-Africanism until Africa is ready. Other than that, let me deal with my daughter, my children, what I got to do in Chicago. That's what I'm on. That's what I'm on. Do not try to push Pan-Africanism on me if Africa not ready. No way. It's not going to happen. Point blank period. As a Pan-African, I'm on snooze right now. I'm on snooze with Pan-African. I'm a Pan-African, but I put it in park. I'm pushing FBI. I need my reparations. I'm not out here. I'm not going to be pushing Pan-Africanism and Africa not pushing it. What? That's like running after a woman that don't want you. She keep telling you, I don't want to be with you, Pharaoh. You're buying her flowers. You're buying her candy. You give her the candy, she throw it on the ground. That. Come on, what we doing? And that's why Pan-Africans today are weak, because they don't apply no pressure to Africa, no pressure. They want to apply the pressure on social media to all of us that ain't in Africa. They want to push for us to go to Africa, but they don't want to push for Africa to send for us. That's a fact. That's how you know that Pan-Africans today are weak and fake and phony, and they just using Pan-Africanism to get views on social media. That's it. They are not serious about Africa. Pan-Africanism is a dead horse until Africa picks it up. When Africa picks it up, call me. But until Africa is ready to be Pan-African, count me out. Give me my reparations here in America so I can survive here in America. Period. Point blank, period. The principles of Pan-Africanism is repatriation. If you're not pushing for FBA and reparations, you're not a Pan-African. Because the second principle to Pan-Africanism is reparations. And the third principle to Pan-Africanism is rehabilitation. So when you see one of these fake Pan-Africans out here that ain't pushing repatriation, reparations, and rehabilitation, that is a bootleg. That is some little baby that wasn't out here when Pan-African was in these streets. They was probably 5. So they don't know a damn thing about Pan-Africanism or the principles of Pan-Africanism. This is them. So if you're not planning to repatriate to Africa, you are not a Pan-African. You cannot be a Pan-African and just stay in America and just stay in Europe and just stay in the Caribbean. You're not a Pan-African if you're not planning to move to Africa. Period. You cannot be a Pan-African without repatriation. Repatriation is a must for a Pan-African. So you want to pretend you follow Garvey, but not follow Garvey's rules. Really. Because the rules of Pan-Africanism is repatriation to Africa.